In this lesson, we're going to be talking about ICMP attacks. So what's an ICMP attack? An ICMP attack is a packet that's designed to do something bad to a particular system, and the protocol that we are using is ICMP. So there's a couple of different ways of doing attacks using ICMP. If I just use ping, which is going to be a pretty common way of performing ICMP attacks, although we could use packet crafting tools, ping is pretty easy, it's pretty reliable. I could do this, for example. I could send a ping with a really large byte count. If a large number of people were to send these ping messages, then we could overwhelm the system that we are sending all of these messages to, because what we're doing is we're sending a lot of data at that system. If we were to go back to Wireshark and get a capture going here, just so we can see these messages. So we've got a few of these messages now, and we can go back to Wireshark. Stop capture, and we'll take a look at ICMP. Now, one of the nice things about ICMP is there's no actual verification of who is sending the message. So what I could do would be to have a program that spoofed or altered this source address. So it wasn't me, it was somebody else. And then what I could do would be to send a large message to a particular destination. And let's say the source that I was pretending to be didn't have a lot of bandwidth, but the destination did have a lot of bandwidth. And so I was sending a lot of messages out, pretending to be somebody who didn't have a lot of bandwidth, and sending them to this other device that did have a lot of bandwidth, and I could get replies to go back to the source that I was pretending to be. And if I set large packet sizes, as I did here, and several of us did it, I could potentially overwhelm this source address. That sounds kind of complicated. So there's actually another way of doing that. So I could actually do something like this. In this case, I am pinging the broadcast address. So you can see here, once I cancel this, you can see I'm getting several messages back. So I'm getting messages back from basically all of the devices on a network. This type of attack is most useful if I can spoof the source address. I could get a lot of systems replying to you, for example, rather than me. So I send out a couple of messages and you get a large number back. Now, this particular type of attack is called a Smurf attack. It's what we sometimes call an ICMP broadcast amplifier. So I could send messages to a broadcast address and get a large number of messages back. If the network happened to be really large, I'm going to get a lot of messages back. And if I set the packet size really large on top of it, I'm going to get a lot of really large messages. So that's a pretty good way of overwhelming systems. And it was pretty common a dozen years or so ago. And we have since more or less defeated this particular type of attack because most of the devices and systems on the internet now have configuration that prevents this sort of thing from happening. So generally, you wouldn't reply to a broadcast message that came from a system not on your network. So in this case, I'm actually sending messages to systems on my network. They're replying. If I were to try to do this to a network that wasn't actually local to me, for example, if I did this, I'm not actually going to get anything back. And that's because the devices on the internet and the routers are all really set to block this sort of message, or at least ignore it and not reply to it. These are some of the types of things you can use ICMP for to do attacks, and it's some of the types of things that you may see from time to time in people attempting to attack you, is you may see ICMP used in this particular way.